Hello everyone, I'm Zoidberg from UK Gaming Network and welcome to this special edition of the UKGN Podcast. This week we're dedicating our entire show to E3 2019. This is, of course, the week where the games industry descend on Los Angeles to sell their wares to the world. In this show I'll guide you through all the presentations and stage shows in the order that they happened, with all the ups and downs as I saw them. You might very well disagree with some of the things that I say, but this is only my opinion. Electronic Arts ditched their traditional press conference in favour of 3 hours of live streams, allowing them to focus more on each game, which would have been great if there was anything new to show. It began well enough with the first look at some gameplay from Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which, while not spectacular, did look like it would be worth playing. Another interesting announcement was that FIFA 20 would include a new street mode called Volta Football. This was interesting because even though I've not liked FIFA for a long time, the FIFA Street game from 2012 is much more fun to play than any of the mainline series entries. There's actually a chance that I'll play FIFA this year. The rest of the show was taken up with half-hour segments dedicated to games that, with the exception of Madden NFL 20, have been out for ages and I've already played. We're not saying that EA shouldn't have taken the time to mention the new Pacific-themed DLC for Battlefield 5, or the Season 2 content for Apex Legends, but it shouldn't have been at the expense of showing us something from the new Dragon Age or Need for Speed. All in all, I liked the format, but it was a disappointing display from the E3 veteran. With Sony all but skipping E3 this year, the show was there for the taking, and Xbox duly stepped up with a 2-hour showcase packed with games. 60 of them. Only Microsoft don't actually want you to buy any of them. Game Pass Ultimate was the main message, with most of the games shown proclaiming that they will be available on the service from day one, lumping together Game Pass and Xbox Live Gold, along with the new Game Pass for PC in a single monthly subscription. In terms of variety, there was truly a game for everyone, although maybe there were too many, as some got lost in the mix. Then there was Keanu. If you thought you couldn't be any more excited for CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077, then up stepped Keanu Reeves to announce his appearance in the game, along with the April release date. If that wasn't enough for you, then the next Xbox console was teased with the promise of Halo Infinite as a launch title. Although all the information given about Project Scarlet can be taken with a pinch of salt at the moment until we actually see it in action, the promise of a new console where you have access to the entire launch lineup via Game Pass is an extremely exciting one. If it wasn't for Doom Eternal, Bethesda's show would have been a complete washout. They continued to flog the two dead horses of Elder Scrolls Blades and Fallout 76, with the former announced for the Nintendo Switch and lots of new content for the latter. Content that you could argue should have been in the game to begin with. They also added a Battle Royale mode, into a game that has terrible shooting, which probably isn't a great idea. Thankfully, ID Software were on hand to save the day, not only with new trailers for the two Wolfenstein games which are out next month, but also the aforementioned new entry in the Doom series, which looks utterly fantastic. November the 22nd can't come soon enough. New games were announced in the form of Arcane Studios' Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo from Evil Within developer Tango Gameworks, neither of which showed off any gameplay, but both had good trailers that set their tone. Anyone hoping for more information on the Elder Scrolls 6 and Starfield were left wanting, as both games were conspicuous by their absence. What would a Ubisoft E3 show be without an elaborate dance routine set to songs that I've never heard before? We still won't find the answer to that one, as, true to form, there was a brief musical interlude to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Just Dance, and announce the 2020 edition. Predictable, and that almost describes the show as a whole. We tend to know what to expect from Ubisoft these days in terms of the games they make, but they at least know how to present them. Watch Dogs Legion started us off with an extended gameplay reveal, looking like a vast improvement on the first two games. Ghost Recon Breakpoint, the future of The Division 2, new expansions for Rainbow Six Siege and For Honor were all then gone through in depth, reaffirming Ubisoft's commitment to free content updates for their biggest games. The actual new games, such as Rainbow Six Quarantine, a co-op PvE entry in the franchise, and the cute and colourful Gods and Monsters, were trailered but almost glossed over entirely. In the end, Ubisoft's inability to prevent leaks robbed the show of most of its surprises, but fans of the Tom Clancy brand were certainly well served. Square Enix began and ended their conference with the biggest games they had. We already knew that Final Fantasy VII Remake was due in March, but now we know that it'll come on 2 Blu-ray discs and that the Midgar section will make up the first episode. This was also our first chance to see the game in action, and it looks just as stunning as you'd expect, even if the chances of me actually playing it are 0. The long-awaited Marvel's Avengers rounded things off, and has already found itself victim of an inexplicable backlash for the characters not looking like the actors from the films. Firstly, this is ridiculous, as nobody said it was based on the films, and secondly, everyone raved about Insomniac's Spider-Man, even though Peter Parker looked nothing like Tom Holland. I thought it looked pretty great, and will always give Crystal Dynamics the benefit of the doubt, especially as the game's still a year away from release. As for the rest of the show, we got the usual raft of remastered old games on new systems that you'd expect from Square, as well as a cinematic trailer for Outriders, a new game from the makers of Bulletstorm. Then there was Circuit Superstars, the latest indie game from Square Enix Collective, which is a top-down arcade racer that I can't wait to play. But then, I am a sucker for a racing game. As you'd expect from Nintendo, they did their own thing with a predictably slick direct presentation. Once they had introduced Doug Bowser, the new head of Nintendo of America, in the most Nintendo way possible, we got an extended look at gameplay from Luigi's Mansion 3. This included a multiplayer mode that nobody asked for, but actually looks fantastic. This was followed by new trailers for Fire Emblem Three Houses, Link's Awakening and Platinum's Astral Chain, and there was even a humble apology for Animal Crossing New Horizons slipping into March. There were plenty of exciting new games that we didn't know about already as well, and we're not just talking about Mario and Sonic at the Tokyo Olympics. Panzer Dragoon is getting a sparkling new remake, Konami announced a brand new entry in the Contra series, and Suda51 is attempting to make amends for Travis Strikes Back with a proper No More Heroes 3. None of these were given release dates, but they all got my attention. Best of the lot was saved for the end though. Breath of the Wild is getting a proper sequel, and it's already in development. That's it. No title, no logo, no release window, and yet its existence made the internet explode. Well done, Nintendo. After all that exhausting information was thrown at us, it comes to the time where we pick our game of the show. With so many titles revealed, shown and talked about, we decided to set one criteria for a game to be considered for the shortlist. We simply have to have seen some gameplay. Cinematic trailers telling us that something exists or just simply a logo won't cut it. We want to know what the games are like to play. And there were a few strong contenders, such as Luigi's Mansion 3, Doom Eternal and Cyberpunk 2077. In the end, we chose the game that surprised us the most. We had such low expectations of Watch Dogs Legion that seeing it look as much fun as it does was easily the most pleasing surprise of the week. It's great to see a big name game like this take place outside of the US, and the near future London setting looks great. We're sceptical of the game's promise that you can play as anyone, but if they manage to get even halfway to that claim, it will be an impressive feat. Playing the game as lots of different characters has the potential to keep the game fresh and interesting. Let's hope the developers can give us plenty to do. Obviously, there's still lots of time between now and March for Ubisoft to mess it up before release, and the brief glimpses of the driving physics still look terrible. But this is a game where you can play as a gangster granny, for heaven's sake. What's not to love about that? So that was E3 for another year, and it was a real mixed bag, with lots of announcements but nothing really shown. Streaming and subscription seem to be a high priority right now, and I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. There were also a lot of notable absentees, such as Fable, Bayonetta 3, Skull and Bones and Beyond Good and Evil 2, but none more than Sony, who will hopefully be back next year to show off the PlayStation 5. Tell us what games you wanted to see but didn't, and what you thought of the ones that were shown in the comments. I'll be back next week with our usual rundown of the week's games and news. Tune in on Friday at 7 PM. Ensure you don't miss any future episodes by hitting the subscribe button, and follow us on Twitter and Facebook at UK Gaming Network. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.